Welcome to Brushmancy. I'm Brushmancer Nick, and today we're going to be painting a Raptor Legion style marine. I love the Raptor Legion because they have a tough military green kind of style. I don't really like all of the religious iconography you get in Space Marine, so let's strip them down, get rid of all those purity seals, make them army green and stamp them with the Brushmancy Military Army Plate. So we've got all of the kind of classic spray painted stenciled US Army icons that you need to decorate your army in a cool military style way. And on top of that, we have another thing. We have a red beret head. So we have a set of custom heads that you can spruce up your Space Marines to make them look a bit more military-like. I hope you like the video. It's all coming up right now.
So I want to make a nice dark camo green. So there's a trick you can do to do that, and it's super simple. All you have to do is take a little bit of black, and in this case we're going to use Black Templar contrast paint, and mix it with a tiny bit of yellow. So I've got Bad Moon yellow contrast paint. So you want a ratio of 4 or 5 to 1 to make it nice and dark for our base coat. And once we've done that, we put it into our air gun, or just hand paint it on, that's no problem at all. And then cover the whole model from head to toe in this lovely dark colour. Next we're going to dry brush with Death Guard Green from Citadel. This is a nice desaturated green, suitable for giving us this khaki camo paint colour. I like to use a round head brush. Now you don't need to buy a super expensive artist opus brush. Any nice medium quality round head brush will do the trick. Brush from top to bottom, giving a nice coverage, hitting the major highlights. Try to think about where the light is coming down on the miniature. But zenithal is typically a maybe from one side top down light source, and we're trying to emulate that with our dry brushing. Fortunately with Space Marines, most of the body armour is the same colour, so we can just hit everything apart from the gun and get a good coverage. Sometimes when you have the air conditioning on, your brush will dry out really fast, and it just seems like you have to constantly dip it in paint to add more colour to the miniature. So one top tip is to have a little sponge next to your brush and just moisten it with water. Don't flood it with water, and then every once in a while you can refresh your brush with a little bit by dabbing it onto the sponge. So now we're going to use an oil wash using Winsor & Newton lamp black. We're just going to take a tiny amount of the lamp black and mix it with some turpentine to produce a very thin wash that we can apply to the miniature. Put a tiny amount into your mixing dish and mix it up. You want to get the consistency so that it's quite thin. The advantage of oil wash over something like Nuln oil is it's got a lower surface tension, allowing it to flow into the cracks. Just gonna
Now this is where you can rub off excesses afterwards, but I prefer to do it on the fly. I think this is actually a little bit too thick. If it tends to stick, I'm going to add a few more drops and then mix that up again. So what I want to get to the stage where I just touch the brush and it flows into the crack. That was pretty nice. Same there. So I'm just going to go around the miniature, looking for details, things I want to pick out, and allowing the black wash to flow into that. So for instance, these joints between the leg, we can just hit that and it will pick it out nicely. Now, when it dries, it does dry a little bit lighter, but it is an amazing way to pick out details, and it will, places that you've over dry brushed, it will allow you to compensate for that and darken the miniature quite significantly. So if you're feeling like, oh, this is too light, or I don't like this color, it's too light, you can use an oil wash to bring the colors down a bit. Occasionally I do, well, there's a great burnt sienna, which is good for rust. Just put it on a bit thicker. And you can use white to go into all the details of, if you want to draw like a glowing rune or something like that. To start off our metals, we're going to dry brush with a thick coating of lead belcher, and then move on to highlights with a lighter metal colour.
And that will form our base colour. Now, lead belcher is the metal particles with a black base, and so it will go on top of our near black or slightly green tinted gun. I did actually paint the barrel fully black because that was where I was holding the miniature before. And you can see I, as usual, use my thumb to test the paint. So get good coverage, try not to brush over the green parts of the miniature, so just be a little careful when hitting the edges, because otherwise you'll have to go back and fix that later. The second stage of painting metals is to use a light metal. I like to use Stormhost Silver, but there are many brands which provide nice high brightness metals, so choose your favorite. And the key then is to edge highlight the areas of the gun that you really want to stand out. So the edges of the shield, the gun shield here, the top of the barrel, a few kind of links in that big chain ammo feed, and other areas that you think are visually important on the weapon. This gun plate here, for instance, so the prominent edges on the top of the gun just get lined. Maybe just a tiny bit of even brighter down the middle of the barrel. Do a bit on the tip. And these rings. So now we're going to add a layer of shadow using an underspray, which is a technique in airbrushing where you spray from the bottom to do the opposite of a zenithal. So we're going to pick out all of the shadows, but instead of using black, we're going to use a brown color, which will warm up the miniature and also add to the green and brown military feel, I think. I really like the effect that it gives. You can do the same, I guess, with a wash if you don't have an airbrush. Just try to think about where the light would be hitting the underside of the miniature. So I just put the Mornfang brown into the airbrush and then diluted it with water. And you can see I'm just spraying very lightly onto the miniature. And sometimes if I spray too much, it does get a bit wet, but usually it dries off okay. It's not too much of a problem. So now we're going to do some black lining using a very thin base black color. So we just thin down the paint until it's quite fluid and easy to flow, and going to paint it along the edges of things that we want to be more contrasting. So the shoulder pad is a great example of something we want to pick out the shape of the ridges. So we're just going to draw a black line along the edge, marking the contrast from one color to the other. So the light green of the edge of the shoulder pad is then contrasted with the black. Like with the ink wash, this technique dries a lot lighter than it looks. So when you apply the paint, it looks quite heavy, but as you dry it off, or as it dries off, it will go a bit thinner, won't be quite so intense. The oil wash and the black lining are kind of similar, but black lining is a bit more extreme, and we want to target distinct shapes that we want to pick out here. So like the circular engines at the back, the shoulder pads, and a few other little features around that crease between the hand and the wrist is a good one as well. So now we're going to apply the contrast paint to our beautifully sculpted head.
now available on My Mini Factory. I mean, that's not bad for a first go. I think with just a touch of highlight on the eyebrows, touch of the bridge of the nose, you know, we can get a good result there. But it's on the whole, it's pretty nice, I have to say. So now we'll go on to doing the caps, which is, of course, the bit that I've been waiting for, because that's the point of red berets, is that the beret is going to really stand out and make them, you know, a focal point of the miniature. So I have this speed paint that I really love, which is Slaughter Red. Now, I've used it a lot on my Daughters of Cain, and it's a fantastic colour, one of my favourites. Just put a tiny bit on my painting palette, and then let's go for it. Now this print has got a lot of detail in it. You can see there's a little crest there. You can't quite make out that it's not an imperial eagle, but that's fine. Just be very careful to... And we have this black line that we're going to deal with later, which will separate the cap from the rest of the miniature. Here we go. It's so shiny when it's wet, but it will dry a matte colour and will be really nice. And it's just such a great colour and will really make the miniature pop. Here we go. This is the moment of truth. So just a tad on the bridge of the nose, on the brow there, on the cheekbone. Oh, it looks a bit much at the moment, but I think when it dries off it'll be okay. And the top of the ear. Fix that mistake where I made with the hat. I mean, painting heads, you have to have a very steady hand, that's all I can say. See, that one's already dried and it looks okay, right? Might just continue the line to the ear. Because it's so thin, when it dries, it leaves very little behind. So my first application to this cheekbone has hardly made any difference. And don't forget, you're going to be viewing the models from above. So I'm kind of liking the gritty feeling of this guy now. He has a certain toughness, those dark eyes, the serious mouth. Maybe just a tad more on the chin. There you go. That's not bad. I mean, definitely got cut-in cheekbones now. And there we go. Resist the temptation to make him talk to you. Oh, just a little bit. So I've heard a technique where you can, if you want to do stubble, you use a bluey tone ink. Now I want to do something on the back of their heads. This is dark blue tone from Army Painter, and I thinned it about 1:1 with water, and I'm just going to paint that in. Let's see what happens when it dries. I mean, at the moment it looks very not much, I guess. So just the lightest brush of gold. So we just want to highlight a couple of the edges on the hat itself to really give it a distinct shape that's bright and colourful on the table, since this is our focus of colour on the miniature. So a little bit more on this edge. So we can see the roundness of the shape through the highlight. There we go. And again, when viewed from above, you're going to get a nice bright hat. So now we're going to do some stamping with the Brushmancy Army Plate to give our Raptor Legion troops a more military feel. Now, don't forget to clean your stamping swiper thoroughly, as well as the plate. I like to use these acetone pads and a lint-free cloth to clean to dry the plate. So make sure everything's good and clean so the paint sticks well, and then add a little dab of white and swipe gently. Quickly pick up the number. So this one's okay. It's got a little bit of paint on the right hand side of the stamper, so we'll just clear that off with a bit of tape off camera, and then we've got a pretty good number 4. The nose is missing a bit, but you can just fill that in with a bit of white paint, and then we want to very gently apply it to the wing of this trooper. So a steady hand is definitely needed. Look down the stamper onto the target and slowly land it on the subject. Now just be patient. There we go, touchdown. That's not bad, right? So now let's do some more. Let's put our unit number, Charlie 4, C4, it's totally explosive, onto the shoulder pad. 2 stamps have got it done. Now how about a lightning attack symbol on the shoulder for assault units, and put his rank onto the wing. Thanks for watching till all the way to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you sign up to our mailing list, you can get a copy of all the STLs for printing out our fantastic military red beret heads, or paint them whatever colour you like. So sign up now to support the channel, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Many thanks for watching.
So I did a second coat of Kislev flesh, and it's looking much better, much more smooth. And I'm just going to add some Reikland flesh shade over this to add tone and darken it down, and then we can compare it with the contrast paint. Now the contrast paint is much more expensive, I have to say, and you kind of need the flesh shade anyway because it's just really useful. So if you're on a budget, I would say this way is cheaper way to go. Now you can see there's less grey in the undertones, which I like. It's a little bit warmer. We can put them both together. So here we have Mr. Contrast Paint. Hello, I'm Mr. Contrast Paint. And he's definitely quite gritty. I mean, I do like that feeling. Whereas Mr. Layer Paint is very bright and colourful. So, I mean, whilst I do like the bright colours, I actually like the dark and grittiness from the contrast paint. I mean, he looks tough. He looks like a weathered warrior, right? So we'll carry on, and I'll add a little bit. I'm going to take some very thin Kislev flesh and add some highlights to this one. So same thing here. This guy just has half a face for us to paint because of the cybernetics. A tiny bit of paint on these raised edges. The top of the ear. He's got a bit of a cabbage ear, probably been a rugby player. Touch on the back of the head. Oh, bit of a smudge there. I don't think there's much we can do about it. Just want to do a tiny bit. So I do like an inverse L across the cheekbone. And that just, again, when we're looking from above, you get a nice effect. It looks pretty good too. Now, back to Mr. Flesh Tone, layer paint and tone. I have to say, the more I look at the contrast paints, the more I think that they win. It depends on whether you want a bright, fresh looking. I mean, this guy looks like he's 18, right? Where the other guy looks like he's 45. I guess that's it. Okay. All right, so now I have some Dark Reaper that I've thinned a little bit. I'm just going to try to pick out some highlights on the side, that's the helmet and other things. Let's see whether it's not too subtle, and if it's too subtle, we'll go to a lighter color. But that is the purpose of Dark Reaper, is to pick out colors on black, and it's actually a bluey grey color. So, but it is quite. There's not a lot of contrast. Let's put it that way. So sometimes I might have to go over something, add a little bit of grey to it. So let's do the first pass like that. And then like maybe just a touch of grey, like the lip of there. Yeah, very, very subtle. Now, I'm not very good at doing reflections, I have to admit. So I'm going to try something simple on this mask, see what happens. So before I do that, well, I'm going to get the grey out. Administratum grey. And we're just going to try and do like a diagonal line across the visor. So let's see how this goes. A diagonal line just across each lens. It's something. Certainly adds a different detail. And now I'm going to go back and mix that grey that I just took with my Dark Reaper and make a slightly lighter highlight colour. And that actually works a bit better. So here's my advice is take a little bit of grey and a little bit of dark Reaper and get something that's a little bit blue but also not too bright, and then use that to highlight the edges of their equipment, right? Just put it on the side of the glasses. The top of the earphones. And that's as good as it's going to get for today. So this guy definitely needs a bit of brightening up. His stuff is very grey, very black. And then finally, for the final highlight on this, we're going to take some of that grey we had earlier and just a little bit of water and do the very, very top of the nose. There we go. The edges of the gas mask. All right, that's a couple of features picked out anyway.